Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Carrolet Thomas, and welcome to my channel. Thank you to those of you who have subscribed to my channel, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. Today's message is, Intimidation is a bully move. This is a prophetic word and prophetic warning from God. Let me give a disclaimer that this is a sensitive word, and if you have been subjected to and or a victim of bullying, you may or may not want to watch or listen to this video, as it might be triggering. I myself have been an adult victim of bullying before, so I know how horrible it feels. However, this is a prophetic word and prophetic warning from God, so I must say what God would have for me to say. Intimidation is a bully move. To be clear, let's start by defining intimidation and bullying. Intimidation is the act of frightening, threatening, or coercing someone to make them do what you want, stop an action, or induce a feeling of inferiority. It can involve explicit threats, aggressive behavior, or subtle emotional manipulation. Core concepts. Definition. Using fear or the threat of harm to influence someone else's behavior. Legal context. Intimidation is often treated as an unlawful offense, such as voter or witness intimidation, if a reasonable person would feel threatened or be forced to act against their will. Psychological context. It frequently stems from an individual's desire to assert dominance or compensate for personal insecurity. Common synonyms: bullying, coercion, harassment, browbeating. Real-world examples. Professional. A boss constantly threatening to fire an employee to force them to work unpaid overtime. Social. Using a campaign of violence or threats to stop citizens from voting in an upcoming election. Personal. An individual feeling a sense of intimidation before stepping onto the field against a much stronger sports team. A bully move is any aggressive, repeated, or deliberate action meant to intimidate, harm, or control someone perceived as more vulnerable. It exploits a power imbalance, such as physical size, social status, or access to private information, and can take several forms. Common types of bully moves: verbal, name-calling, mocking, making threats, or persistently belittling someone. Social relational, deliberately excluding someone from a group, spreading rumors, or manipulating relationships to isolate them. Physical, shoving, tripping, hitting, or invading personal space to cause fear. Cyberbullying, using digital platforms, text messages, or social media to harass, shame, or threaten someone. Professional workplace, sabotaging someone's work, stealing credit for ideas, wrongfully blaming them, or withholding necessary information to make them fail. Context-specific meanings. Sports, for example, basketball and hockey. In basketball, it refers to bully ball, which involves a player using their physical strength and body contact to push defenders out of the way and clear space. In field hockey, a bully is a specific rule used to restart play after an injury or stoppage. Entertainment. In some video games, like the game Bully, It can refer to specific aggressive, brawling moves used by characters. How to address it. Understanding what constitutes bullying is the first step in addressing it. If you are experiencing this, you can set clear boundaries, use short, direct statements like stop, that's not okay, or leave me alone. Document and report. Keep records of the incidents and report them to trusted authorities such as a teacher, HR representative, or administrator. Seek resources. For actionable advice on reporting and managing these situations, refer to stopbullying.gov or the Stomp Out Bullying Guide. For whatever reason, there are some people that think it is okay to use their power, position, title, educational attainment, socioeconomic status, money, network, family, friends, social circles, profession, and professional and personal connections to intimidate and or bully people. It is not okay. This type of behavior is found in the world and in the church, as quiet as it is kept, and God is not pleased. For this prophetic word and prophetic warning, we are going to look at some biblical examples of people that used intimidation and made bully moves and their outcomes. First, King Saul toward David. King Saul's relationship with David is a classic biblical study in jealousy and abuse. Driven by the fear of losing his throne, Saul subjected David to years of psychological and physical warfare. Despite David's absolute loyalty, Saul's unchecked ego poisoned his mind and drove him into a destructive pattern of relentless bullying and intimidation. Methods of intimidation and bullying. Saul employed several tactics to control, threaten, and ultimately eliminate his young rival. Physical violence. Saul repeatedly attempted to physically harm or assassinate David. This included throwing spears at him directly while David played his harp in the palace and sending hitmen to David's house. The enemy set up. Instead of confronting David outright, Saul used passive-aggressive psychological tactics. He manipulated David into frontline battles with the Philistines, hoping the enemy would do the dirty work of killing him. Pawns and manipulation. Saul actively used his own family as weapons. He offered his daughters in marriage as traps and attempted to turn David's close friends and Saul's own son, Jonathan, against him. Smear campaign. Saul isolated David by declaring him an outlaw, hunting him across the Judean wilderness, and eventually slaughtering priests who showed David mercy. The outcome. Saul's obsession and bullying ultimately backfired, serving only to accelerate his own downfall. David's rise and Saul's decline. The more Saul tried to demean and destroy David, the more David gained the loyalty of the people and the protection of God. David was able to safely evade Saul, and on several occasions he spared Saul's life to show respect for his position. Self-destruction. Saul's relentless focus on destroying David caused him to abandon his duties as king. He alienated himself from his family, his army, and eventually God. Tragic demise. Saul's life ended in total ruin. He died alongside his sons, including Jonathan, on the battlefield after consulting a medium out of desperation. David, the man he hounded for years, ended up mourning his death and ascending to the throne of Israel. I don't know why, but sometimes there are some people that just become fixated on God's chosen, and they just will not leave them alone until they fool around and find out. In Psalm 105, verse 15, and 1 Chronicles chapter 16, verse 22, God says, "Touch not mine anointed, and do my prophets no harm." The verse, which also appears, it's in Psalm 105:15, also appears in 1 Chronicles 16:22, emphasizes God's divine protection over the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and his chosen people as they traveled. Key context and usage. Original meaning: the anointed ones referred to Israel's patriarchs chosen by God to carry out his covenant. To touch them meant to inflict physical harm or interfere with God's plans. Contemporary application. This verse does not exempt leaders from accountability. This means that it doesn't matter who you are, who you think you are, who people tell you you are, etc. God is God. And God said, "Touch not mine anointed, and do my prophets no harm." Point blank, period. God says what he means, and God means what he says. Next, and lastly, Haman towards Mordecai. Haman, the Grand Vizier of Persian King Ahasuerus, also known as King Xerxes, demanded that all subjects bow to him. When the Jewish official Mordecai refused out of religious devotion, Haman's wounded pride exploded into toxic bullying and intimidation. He weaponized state power, securing a royal decree to legally massacre every Jewish person in the empire. Tactics used by Haman. Haman moved from petty harassment to systemic intimidation. The power trip. Haman held the highest office in the Persian court. Expecting total submission, he used his high status to force compliance from all palace officials. Manipulation and scapegoating. When Mordecai politely but firmly refused to bow, Haman did not just target him. He used half-truths and manipulation to demonize the entire Jewish population to the king, portraying them as dangerous, rebellious, and separate lawbreakers. Bribery. To ensure the king signed the genocidal decree, Haman offered the king a massive financial bribe of 10,000 talents of silver, roughly 66 million in modern value, from the spoils. The ultimate threat. Haman engaged in targeted harassment against Mordecai personally by building a massive 50 cubit, which is roughly 75 feet, gallows right outside his own house, fully intending to hang Mordecai on it. The outcome. Haman's bullying led to a massive, fatal reversal of fortune. The turning point. The night before Haman planned to ask for Mordecai's execution, the king couldn't sleep. While reading the historical Chronicles, the king realized Mordecai had never been rewarded for previously saving his life from an assassination plot. Public humiliation. Seeking a way to reward a loyal subject, the king forced Haman to publicly parade Mordecai through the city square on the royal horse, wearing royal robes. This served as a profound humiliation for Haman. Esther's intervention. Unbeknownst to Haman, Queen Esther was Jewish and Mordecai's cousin. At a royal banquet, Esther exposed Haman's plot to annihilate her people. Haman's downfall. King Ahasuerus was furious. Haman was swiftly arrested and executed on the very gallows he had built to intimidate Mordecai. Mordecai's promotion. Mordecai was subsequently elevated to Haman's former position of power, given the king's signet ring, and used his authority to issue a counter decree allowing the Jewish people to successfully defend themselves. This historic rescue is celebrated annually by Jewish people during the festival of Purim. It's a dangerous thing to think more highly of yourself than what you ought. The Bible warns against doing that. That timeless advice comes from the New Testament, specifically Romans chapter 12, verse 3. Context and meaning. The quote, "For I say through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according to as God has dealt to every man the measure of faith." The core message. It serves as a reminder to practice humility and self-awareness, avoiding arrogance while maintaining an honest appraisal of one's abilities and worth. Haman didn't get the memo. Life has a way of coming full circle, and what you wish upon others, you usually receive yourself, whether good, bad, and or indifferent. God is a just God, and God says in Romans chapter 12, verse 19, "Vengeance is mine, I shall repay." The phrase is most famously quoted in the New Testament, and that's Romans chapter 12, verse 19, by the Apostle Paul, who was directly referencing an older passage from the Old Testament, Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 35. Key meanings and principles. Releasing control. It relieves individuals of the burden of seeking payback, which is often corrupted by human anger, bias, or desire to cause harm. Trust and ultimate justice. It expresses faith that God's judgment is perfect, righteous, and accounts for all motives and circumstances that humans cannot see. Promoting forgiveness. The broader context encourages believers to respond to wrongs with kindness and mercy rather than retaliation. The Bible also says that we reap what we sow, that whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Source and context, the Bible verse. This is a famous quote from the New Testament, Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. Full sentence. "Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." Meaning, your actions have inevitable consequences. Positive actions bring good results, while negative actions bring bad results. Cultural equivalence. Karma. What goes around comes around. Proverb. You reap what you sow. Science. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So, just know that though intimidation is a bully move, ain't nobody, and I mean nobody, bigger and badder than God. And God will take care of everything and everybody that concerns and comes against us, his righteous ones. Hallelujah. Our job is just to obey God in word and in deed, in spirit and in truth, without debate and without delay, and watch God work. Hallelujah. I hope and pray that this message has been a blessing to you. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you feel led, you can make a donation. Thank you for listening and supporting my YouTube channel. God bless you and just be happy.